Hi, this is Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang and the expert path. All right, what is the expert path? The expert path is specifically a policy that I am proposing today. I will sketch this out, and then I'm going to leave it here for Andrew Yang and his team, and I am hoping that they will pick this up and add it to their policy collection. The value in it would be, one, the policy would be incredibly productive from the perspective of education, and it would continue to distinguish him as an innovative thinker, right? You need to remind people of that, right? So that would be the value. So I'm gonna sketch this policy out, and I'm hoping that Andrew Yang and his team will pick it up. All right, so let's talk about the expert path. All right, so the expert path is a new policy for education that would put into place that all public schools going forward would begin a massive movement toward making board games a major track in all a major part of public education for K through 12. All right, now why will we do this? Well, one, my name is Scott Garibay, and I am a major board gamer. I have a collection of 40 board games. I don't allow my collection to go over 50. I've owned well over 100 games. I do a cull every year of probably 5 to 10 games to make sure that my collection remains tight, right? And I've played easily probably 150, 200 tabletop board games specifically, right? And I used to think that this was just kind of a cute hobby I have, and I've realized that it's massively important to who I am and my entire family, right? One of the things is my two oldest kids, actually all of my kids, have displayed incredible benefits from board games. And the reason why is I never really this is a vantage position, right? What I'm about to tell you, I can tell you because I have a vantage, right? I'm standing on top of 4 decades of board game play. I'm standing on top of having seen easily 200 board game designs and having raised 4 children with board games, right? And I could tell you what board games do, right? What board games do is they increase, what they do is they attach delight to complexity. That's the issue. Board games are delightful, right? Because they have theme, they can delight different people in different ways. They can speak to a person in a way that textbooks cannot, right? And theme is a huge part of board games, right? But the thing is, once you find even a few board games that you really like because of the theme or because of the gameplay or because of the tactile sensation, board games begin to attach delight to complexity. And this is a very big deal because most of the time, complexity is a point of frustration for people, right? And the reason why I think this needs to go into public education is right now, and I will tell you this is true. I go to a lot of board game conventions, and you know what you see at board game conventions? You see a lot of wealthy people and very few poor people. It is a very distinct cut. It is an axis, right? And the reason why is, I think a lot of people, when they are faced with complexity, become frustrated and they turn away from that thing, right? But if we put board games into public now what I just said is, of course, macro level, right? If you put board games at a massive, almost at the same level you put English or mathematics, right? You make it a tract, and it's weaved into every aspect of the school, right? 1 or 2 periods a day would be used for board games under expert. Okay. By the way, expert path is experience path, and I'll explain why that word experience is important in a minute, okay? All right, so the expert path, right, is introducing board games as a major track within public education, right? So basically, board games attach delight to complexity, and this is a huge idea. And I know this for a fact because my kids, they run headlong into complexity now, right? Last night, and it's the reason why we're talking about this today, I played with my 2 daughters and my wife a brand new board game that we had bought. We got it on half off sale on Black Friday, called Azul Summer Pavilion. And at first I was a little discouraged when we started playing Azul Summer Pavilion. I felt ashamed of myself for owning 3 board games that deal with Portuguese mosaics. We own Azul, one separate standalone board game. We own Azul Stained Glass of Citrus, a separate standalone board game. And we own Azul Summer Pavilion, a standalone separate board game. Every single one of these board games has the theme of Portuguese mosaics. And I'm like, Scott, you spent $20 on a third board game about, Portuguese mosaics. Like, how many board games about Portuguese mosaics do you need, right? And I thought it was wasteful until we played, right? And my oldest daughter won. She beat me with a score of 81. I had a score of 78. My wife had a score of 63. And my youngest daughter got tired and went to bed early, which was frustrating, but it's okay. All right. And what I saw that my oldest daughter, right, when she saw how the strategy, when she saw how this game was played, and at the end of the game saw how the strategy was unfolding, I could see, like, she was silent and just staring at the board, because all these patterns of complexity and pattern recognition and mathematical spatial relations were just gears clicking in her mind. I realized, this game was worth every penny. And the reason why is because my kids have played many, many, many board games, right? They delight in complexity, and every single one of my children run headlong into complexity, and it makes all of their academic and frankly, even my older son is in the working world now, and he is crushing it, right? Like, good Lord, he's like 24 and he's almost caught up to where I am. It's ridiculous, right? And so in the professional and the academic world, they absolutely smash down barriers so easily because they delight in complexity, and they all run headlong into complexity, right? And I know this for a fact because one of the things we've struggled with is we will invite families over, right? Drop down our board game, right, to show them, and invariably, with families that don't play board games, the complexity is so high that it becomes a mess. Half that, 1 or 2 people in the family will get it, and then 1 or 2 people in the family have no clue what's happening. They're frustrated, and they're frustrated by the complexity. They do not delight in complexity. It's an awkward social situation that's happened, and it's made us get to this point, like, be very careful to bring low complexity board games to the table, right? And it's a challenge. It's a real challenge, right? Now, the expert path has another really critical component, right? The other component of the expert path is specifically the Begwin Abyss, right? Now, when people learn board games for the first time, there are two paths that people choose. They choose the expert path, right? Or they choose the Begwin path, right? Now, the expert path is, let's play this board game. I want to learn how I can make legal moves in this game, okay? All right. That's an expert. They sit down at the table and they experience the game, okay? The Begwin is a is a person with an absolutely horrendous thought pattern. It's called the Begwin thought pattern. By the way, expert and Begwin, these are my terms, Scott Garibay terms. I've coined them because I've needed them to explain this issue to people, right? All right, so what is a Begwin? It is a person who plays a board game and says at the beginning of the game, you now need to, I'm playing this board game for the first time. I'm not going to experience it. You are given, the person who is teaching this board game to me, you need to communicate this board game, its rules, its pattern, and its strategy simultaneously and perfect to me. And if you do a single thing wrong and I lose this game because you failed to make it so that when I begin, I can win. When I begin, I can win. When I begin, I can win. Begwins want to begin and win immediately. It is the worst thought pattern in board games. It is disgusting. I detest it. Right? And the reason why is when you have a Begwin at the table, it's going to suck for everybody, right? Because they are now in a situation where they're like, hey, okay, you now not only have to teach this thing to me, you got to teach it to me perfectly. And if you don't do it perfectly, I'm going to be upset that I didn't win this game that I just played for the first time. It is horrendous, nightmarish, ugly, frustrating. It is just bad at every level. Begwins are the worst, right? Begwin thought patterns are the worst. The people are great. People with Begwin thought patterns, the thought patterns are horrible, right? And when you have a Begwin, it's going to take more time to play. It's going to end in frustration because almost all the time the person's going to lose and they're going to be frustrated. And they're also going to hate the game forever just because they lost. Begwin thought patterns are absolutely destructive to the joy of board games, right? And it happens when people are trying to learn the game, learn how to play, and learn the strategy simultaneously. When you play a board game, you cannot do that. You must experience the game and frankly lose and see it. And then when you've seen how it's legally played, then and only then can you learn the strategy, right? The expert path would destroy Begwin thought patterns, right? And I think this would have massive ramifications for America overall and for the world. The expert path will be a policy that will establish a strong pattern for public education, right? There will be dissertations written on how beneficial this path would be, right? And the reality is part of it would be destroying Begwin thought patterns. And I can guarantee that destroying Begwin thought patterns, taking Begwin thought patterns and throwing them into an abyss. So a component of the expert path would be the Begwin abyss, throwing Begwin thought patterns into the abyss, right? Getting rid of them, eradicating them, right? It would be a massive cultural and societal benefit for America first and then the world, right? I really think this is incredibly important for Andrew Yang to put into place. This will allow him to continue to double down on the idea and reinforce the idea that he is an innovative thinker and he is proposing policies that no one can match in innovation, right? That are effective and winsome and charming and useful and beneficial, right? All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. What do you think of the expert path? Do you think Andrew Yang should drop this on his website 2 weeks from now when one of his 70 people have fully detailed it? Or are you a Begwin and you think what I'm saying is wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing and have a wonderful millennium.